Now to the Tennessee Three, who are heading to the White House to meet with President Biden on Monday. The three Tennessee lawmakers disrupted a session at the state capitol to advocate for gun control measures last month in the wake of the shootings at the Covenant School in Nashville. They're now political celebrities. If you regularly watch the news, you know their faces. You probably even know their names. Representative Justin Pearson, Justin Jones, and Representative Gloria Johnson. And they are all now back in their jobs. Now, for me, the real Tennessee Three are the Nashville detectives Sergeant Jeff Mathis, Detective Michael Collazo, and Officer Rex Engelbert, who ran toward the gunshots to take out the shooter within 14 minutes of getting the call. But the three politicians have become media darlings, repeatedly referred to as heroes. Vice President Harris already went down to Nashville to celebrate them, and now a visit to the White House? This feels like overkill to me. John?
Well, they're only heroes because villains have been attacking them. I think showing up at a protest because you're upset about kids getting killed, that's bare minimum. Like, I think there should have been more Democrats and Republicans taking part in that protest. The Republicans overshot, and
the Republicans did overshoot.
They made themselves to be the villains. These two young men are going to be media superstars.
But that's because of the left.
No, it's because of the right.
No, the right gives them the platform, and then the left amplifies it.
But the right could have just censured them. Right? I mean, the Speaker of the House in Tennessee, in 2019, they had a Republican member of the legislature who was credibly accused by 3 women of sexual abuse, and he said it's not our job to throw people out, and now they did it.
Why does the left never want to talk about the cops? Every time I talk about this, their response is, that's their job.
I agree.
That's their job. Well, of course they ran. That's what they do. It's like,
well, no doubt,
I'm
saying the cops are the real heroes. The Republicans made these 3 the heroes.
Yes, but here's the thing. You also had the cops. Yes, they were doing their job, and thank God they were doing their job, and they are heroes. They're heroes every day.
But they're not getting invited to the White House, and Vice President Harris.
And I think that's a shame, and I think it's ridiculous, and it's hypocritical. However, it doesn't mean that you have to come down on these guys. No. And remember, you got the good guy, bad guy here. You got the, I mean, look, the female, the white woman, she wasn't, she wasn't taken down. These 2 were, and so you have the whole racist thing.
Well,
there's all that stuff kind of plays in there.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of curious how we draw a line between socially disruptive behavior that is good and that which is bad. And I think it takes a 2/3 vote to expel them, and that's a supermajority. So that was the numbers, and that's how that goes. And I don't disagree. I mean, these are not underrepresented people. They're literally in a position to make change legislatively, and I don't think it was wrong for them to get expelled from their jobs.
So the people they represent then would have no representation, and that's okay?
Well, they didn't follow the rules. So this is what
right. But others who have not followed the rules
get censured. Behavior. Sure, but that's up to the votes. I mean,
if it were you, would you vote for censure, or would you vote to kick them out?
I really don't know.
Come on, answer, Kate.
I don't know that. Maybe if I
we have over 120 members of our Congress in D.C. who voted to throw out democracy, and they also have their jobs. I think your point is excellent. The White House invited these people, these 3 legislators, to come because it's good politics. They did it for the optics, right? Look at us. They know the majority of Americans are fed up with these mass killings, want to do something, and it's good optics for them.
No. That's not why they're doing it.
It's
not because of the mass killings. No, but it's not the mass killings. It's the celebrity of these folks now.
Well, sure.
Now they're the victims.
But sure, the White House is doing it for themselves, right?
Yes.
They're doing it to.
Yes.
So I think inviting the 3 cops would be just as much
of
a service to the White House.
Right?
It would have been smart politics.
Right.
You're exactly
well, there's still time.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
They're watching right now. I know. I talked to Biden. He's watching.
Yeah. No, I really don't think that. I don't think it's going to happen. Anyway.
But you're right.
Your point about the cops and the
victims.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. The victims' families.
Victims, but that narrative, because it was a Christian school and because of the way that was all spun, was unfortunately very disadvantageous to the victims and the families. Yeah, there's not a lot of attention on that from the White House.
There's,
I think there is. I think that the president spoke beautifully about it, and the president is
well,
fighting
actually,
to have...
he started his speech about it, talking about ice cream and joking about whether he...
Oh, I agree.
I think that was a little bit...
I agree. That was...
there was that.
I don't know if
but
that
no
was
one's been insensitive to that. But no one's been
you know.
insensitive to these victims because it was a Christian school. I
think the narrative is very clear about the way that it was spun into who was a victim, including the shooter. I mean, if we're going to talk about that, like in the sense that there was a trans issue involved with everything. And so, I do think it's unfortunate.
I don't know anyone on the left who called the shooter a victim.
Right, but if the victims had been black and the shooter had been white, there would have been much more talk on the left about, right?
Yes, but do we know for a fact that there was what the motive was for the shooter? We don't know yet, but it was because of an anti-Christian bias.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.